So can you take a moment and just define again for us liberation theology?
Well, liberation theology is a movement that started formally in the academy, in academia, in the 1960s, at the height of the Black Power and civil rights movements in America, and of course the push for full human emancipation, particularly in Latin America and Asian America, and Asia as well. And it maintains that the gospel of Jesus Christ is fundamentally a gospel of liberation. And it's important because liberation theologies emerge in a context of human oppression, whether it is Latin America, whether it's the United States, whether it is Asia, whether it is the Isles, the Caribbean, the Pacific. And it seeks to identify with oppressed communities in many ways, like God through Moses identified with the Israelites in the Exodus narrative in the Bible. And it maintains, and this is particularly crucial, it maintains that when God acts in history, God acts consistently in history on the side of the oppressed, not on the side of the colonizer. And that is important because I'm sure it's going to come out in our discussion later, is that in each one of these contexts, whether it was in South Africa, whether it was in Latin America, whether it was even with Hinduism and the caste system in India, and of course the African diasporic context here in America, there's always been a prevailing public theology that sought to equate the goals of divine agency with colonialism, and not with the opposite of that, which is liberation. And so liberation theology then became a rallying force that allowed the oppressed to engage their condition not as a people alien to divine will, but as a people who were engaged in a process of trying to bring liberation to themselves that was commensurate with divine will. And so in that sense, liberation theology became an effective and, in my judgment, a more appropriate alternative when we look at the expanse of biblical revelation and we see the consistency of God coming down in oppressed context for the oppressed and not for the perpetuation of colonialism. And so this becomes very important because it becomes a source of hope, not only from an existential historical standpoint, but it also becomes a source of hope from the encounter with God, God's self for oppressed people as it seeks to liberate itself from colonialism.
Okay, so you went to the colony, so you went back quite a ways, right? But as such, what we're understanding, I think what I'm hearing is God is there for the oppressed, and not just, I'm going to add, not just black oppressed, right? But all oppressed.
Yes. It emerges, liberation theology emerges in an oppressed context.
Right. But specifically, there is that theology that does speak to the plight of a black people. And I love it as you talked about divine will. So often, sometimes the confusion is that we don't see ourselves in the Bible, and I don't want to jump ahead. We don't see ourselves in the Bible, and sometimes that challenges us to see the divine nature of God within us and operating in our lives, right? And so how do you channel that in a kind of way that says God is with you, God cares for you, caters to you, and you are a special concern of His? Is that kind of, okay.
Yeah, well, not only that God cares for you, but the restlessness with your oppressive condition, which I bring out more in my latest book than the one we're going to talk about tonight, that the restlessness that any oppressed people have with their oppressed condition is not their own strivings, that this restlessness that they have, this dissatisfaction that they have with their oppressed condition is divinely engineered. It is not just socially and historically engineered. So in that sense, we are maintaining not only that God intervenes on behalf of the oppressed, but that God energizes the oppressed base as God struggles with them to affirm their humanity in an oppressive context. And so God is busy being active, God self, as well as infusing oppressed communities with the insatiable desire to be free.
Okay. I hear that the God creates, in my words, God creates a stirring that moves us towards liberation. And I might be going ahead a little bit, and doing those things that will help us attain that liberation. Activism, kinds of things. Okay.